All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center. Welcome to the Wanda Coleman Theater. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Quentin Ring. I am Beyond Baroque's Executive Director, and we have a really wonderful program for you tonight. It's an evening of international and translated poetry. We have poetry in Polish, poetry in Italian as well, and we're very pleased to be able to welcome Krzysztof Siwczyk and Catherine Theis. They're both celebrating new books, as well as Piotr Florczyk. It's really just a really fun evening for us. We place a lot of value on poetry and translation, thinking about different languages, and so this is a special pleasure to be able to host this for everyone. Before we get started, I wanted to say a few words about Beyond Baroque. We do think it's important to acknowledge our presence here on Tongva land, and to also acknowledge the wrong done to indigenous peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent dispossession of their land. Beyond Baroque, as an arts organization, is committed to uplifting indigenous writers, their narrative, and their art. A few more words about who we are and what we do. We are a space and a community dedicated to the imaginative possibilities of language. We support writers, artists, and particularly poets. We were founded in 1968, making us 57 years old this year, and we nurture the literary arts in a variety of ways. We have various workshops, our Monday night fiction workshop, our Wednesday night poetry workshop, those are both free. We have paid workshops as well. Those are usually on Saturdays. And we occasionally have reading seminars and a variety of other kinds of workshop experiences. So please do check out our website or our social media to see what we have coming up. We also have a reading and performance series right here in this theater. We have about 100 events a year here. And again, it's mostly poetry, but sometimes it's fiction, nonfiction. We have plays, performances sometimes music, film, all kinds of different events spanning the entirety of the arts, pretty much. Tomorrow, we are a co-sponsor of the Culver City Book Festival. That will be at the Vende Museum in Culver City. So if any of you are looking to get out, find some cool books, you should go to that. We are presenting a panel as well as part of that, featuring poets, writers, artists from Altadena, several of whom lost their homes. So we'll be thinking about that community a little bit. They'll be speaking about their experiences. We'll also be exploring the very rich history Altadena has as a historically Black community. And so I think it'd be a really great panel for everyone to come out. You're free. Moving forward, we have lots of great events coming up rest of this month in March as well. We have a book launch for William Archila in early March. We also have there's a big USC connection with this program, but we have a new reading series featuring poets from the USC PhD program, along with other poets from the area that's being hosted and curated by L.A. Johnson. That's on March 7th. And if you're looking for something really different, we have next Thursday something we call Goth Prom. We have a bunch of bands who will be playing here, and people will be coming dressed up as their favorite Goth Prom attire. That's a fundraiser for the wildfire relief as well. If you appreciate what we do, if you like the show, if you want to support the arts, we do really appreciate anybody who's able to become a member. It costs as little as $60 if you're a student or a senior. $75 is a regular membership. $100 is a dual membership. We have levels above that. We have had to start charging for events, again, due to some cuts to arts funding. So if you become a member, you do get into our events for free. You get a discount in the bookstore. You get a discount on our workshops. And it really does just help support the space, helps us to pay poets and writers, and it keeps this place running. So please do see Nick in the bookstore if you're interested in that. And we do appreciate those of you who are members. So thank you. I don't have too much more to say other than I really would like to thank our staff who worked on the program, Eric Alberg, who's running things in the booth, as well as Jimmy Vega, Genesis Perez, Nick Foreman, and Yvonne Salinas. They keep this place running. But the program itself, as I said, we're really celebrating 2 new books. Krzysztof's new book, A Calligraphy of Days, translated by Piotr, of course, and also by Alice Catherine Carls, who can't be here, but I think is tuning in on YouTube. So we definitely want to show our appreciation for her. And then Slashing Sounds, which is by Jolanda Insana, and is translated by Catherine. So just really wonderful to be able to celebrate 2 new books, and to have Krzysztof all the way from Poland as well. So we're going to start off. Oh, I should mention one more thing. I apologize. David St. John was supposed to be part of this reading. He unfortunately wasn't able to make it. He's ill today, and so we have one less reader today. But we hope to have David back soon. So we're going to start off with Catherine Theis, who's the author of the poetry collection The Fraud of Good Sleep and the play Medea, translator of Slashing Sounds, first collection of the Italian poet Jolanda Insana to be published in English. Theis's newest collection of poems by a Roman will be published by Antiphony Press in August 2025. She teaches at the University of Southern California. Please, everybody, welcome Catherine.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to everybody at Beyond Baroque and my fellow readers. I'm very excited to share the poetry of Wanda Insana. I'll be reading from Slashing Sounds, a book that originally appeared in Italy under the title Fendenti Fonici, 1980. This is the first full-length collection Insana put out into the world. Because of the title, you may have guessed that Insana is a very vibrant, vicious, and sort of, I don't know, maybe we can say she's a vulgar kind of poet, but in the best way. She's punk rock, really. What I've decided to do is I'm going to read the first poem in Italian, so you get a sense of who she is and what she sounds like, and then I'll read 3 or 4 poems in the English. And like everything with Insana, things are always difficult, right? She has long poems in short numbered sections. So I'll read the numbers so you can hear the sections as they come. She also was a classical translator, so her poetry is littered with Latin and Dante's Italian, and there's Sicilian throughout, which made translating her work very difficult. But I came to enjoy her voice. Niente disse. 1. Di reverenze ne ho assai, più di quanto basta. 2. Il referente sono io e me ne vanto. 3. Mi specchio e si gravo con dolore figliando famiglie di parole, immagini, pargolette e sorellini maggiori. Lo specchio sono io il mio stesso io, e tu ci sformi. 4. Fuori dello specchio, avanti la mia comparsa, non ci furono pensieri né presentimenti, mentre tu credi di esserci tu. Narciso per Narciso, ti giuro, sono io Narciso e Cristoma. 5. Io mi faccio come mi pare e piace fuori e dentro il mondo, più bicchierie, osterie, giochi di artificio. Qualche volta mi lascio fare e allora sì, che sono guai. 6. Però non scappo anche se ci fu un tempo che mi fecero scappare per arcadi, salotti e sacristi, ma non era io. La poesia era la pallida e sminciata ombra mia. 7. E comunque non mi piscio né mi scrivo addosso, è lui che pretende di iscriversi in me e ingravidarmi tutto quanto come vacca. Non escludo che una volta su 10 riesci a rovesciarmi in testa i suoi petali e a farmi girare le sue fretate. Fino a quando però non mi girano le palle al poeta, che lo dico io, culus perforatus non habet dominum. 8. Di malo e malum, tornat e ritornat, male dormit poet qui non manducat. 9. Ma se vuole manducare di latte e pane buono, suum vacuum debit nature. 10. Invece di più di una volta, e non ti so dire quanti, il ruffiano pinovendolo mi svacca a morire. L'anta di Genesta rivertetura scopan, e non sempre scopa nove fa gran sfruscio. 11. E poi non basta lo sfruscio, il nome e la nomina, ci vuole qualcosa di altro, altrimenti davvero sbianca, piange pure l'inanimata scavatrice. 12. Se c'ero, non c'ero. Se non c'ero, ci sono. Niente vide, niente so, niente disse, e se disse niente, dissi tutto. 14. Di cotello a pistolam, di cucina a sessum, di ovo a gallion, di scala a montem, di scuola a ecclesiam. 15. E poi mi permetto di mettere il cappello a chi non ha capo. 16. Chi non ha capo mi toglie cappello e beretta, mi storce la coppola, mi strappa le braghe, mi lascio con culo di fuori, mi scopre i genitali e ci sputa sopra il porco che è lui. Se guarda la pisella, che è una bella pisella, e dice: ecco, lo dicevo, non è pura. Che vergogna. 17. Si incappuccia tutto grinzoso, un sacco stravecchio, e pretendi da me risposta non altro germinando. Ma quale risposta alla strazzosa per correggine? 18. Allevate un paese ruvidì e selvaggio, o per amanti, teneruzzi e rubitazzi, poveri, scannati di fame e golosia, che mi tengono di sopra, stretti per gli stretti fianchi, e ci sustriamo così che non si vedono e si devono tornare. Chi non manco ragione grida forte recate il nome mio. I miei amanti amano il tricchebalacco di aronia. 19. E chi mi voglia spollare, ser vergognare e spubblicare, io dico, ti do la lana, ma no la pecora. I said nothing. 1. I have a lot of references, more than enough. The referent is me, and I'm proud of it. 3. I mirror myself and spawn with pain, forming families of words, baby pictures, and older little sisters. The mirror is me, it's me, my true self, and you are disturbed by it. Out of the mirror, in front of my appearance, there weren't any premonitions or presentiments, while you believe you're pure. Narcissus for Narcissus, I swear that I'm Narcissa in Goldman. 5. I invent myself as I like outside and inside the world through butcher shops, taverns, and fireworks. Sometimes I let myself go, and then yes, there's trouble. 6. But I don't escape, even if there was a time when they made me run through arcades, salons, sacristies. But it wasn't me. Poetry was my pale and limp shadow. And in any case, I don't piss or write on myself. He's the one who demands to inscribe himself on me and knocks me all up like a cow. I'm not ruling out that 1 in 10 times he manages to dub his bedpan over my head and turns it around on me. Until he busts my balls and I say to the poet, Pulos perforatus non habet dominum. 8. De malo and malum, tornat et retornat, male dormit poet qui no manducat. 9. But if he wants to eat, dilate pana bonum, suum vacum debet nature. 10. Instead, more than once, and I can't say how many times, the pimp writer hack leaves me to die. Planta digenesta revertitur ad scopum, and a new broom doesn't always make a great rustle. 11. The rustle and the name and the reputation, it's not enough. You need something else, otherwise even the lifeless digger really goes pale and cries. 12. If I was there, I wasn't there. If I wasn't there, I am here. 13. I saw nothing, I know nothing, I said nothing, and if I said nothing, I said everything. 14. Di cutello a pistolam, de cucina a sessum, di ovo a gallidam, di scala a montem, di scuola ad ecclesiam. 15. And then let me put the hat on those who have no head. 16. Headless, he pulls off my cap and hat, tears off my beret, rips off my pants, leaves me with my ass hanging out, the pig that he is, finds my genitals, spits on them, eyes the cherry that is a beautiful cherry, and says, "Look, I told you it wasn't pure. What a disgrace." He hoods himself all wrinkled in an old, worn-out sack and demands answers from me, giving life to nothing else. But how to respond to such stupidity? 18. Raised in a rough and savage town, I have as lovers sweethearts and ruffians, poor men butchered by hunger and gluttony who hold me on top, tight on my skinny sides, and we whisper things that can't be sold and must be given away. Those who have no reason scream loudly and blackmail me. My lovers love the tambourine of irony. 19. And whoever wants to strip me, to shame and dismiss me, I say, I give you the wool, not the sheep. She has some really lovely titles. This one is called Destitute and Living in Dung. Don't be sad because the wind comes from the sea. Destitute and living in dung, instead of chewing cheeky problems, I'm gonna go dig up a smokeless dunghill. Veal guts, known fumat for long. Short cord to the rascals, otherwise they string me up too. Wound up in fringe details attached to straw seats. I'm not beagly and breadcrumbs, leisure for no one. I don't ask for or offer refunds, and when the liver is fried, whoever doesn't count pennies has little to big bites, and there's little to be stripped. What despair and suffocation hiding in all the holes, with or without ism. In this sad and famished air, words trap the wise and mad, and no one asketh, saints are naked. If you piss me off, I shit on you, poet without pepper. If I offend, I get a hammer and engrave the marble. If I get offended, I write on ice and I put it in the sun. I laugh when I want and cry when I can. Behind the fortune of the novel and the poetry, is there not a question of misogyny? As for myself, I recognize no other rule. I know you will not die for the dangers you fear. And drunk as you are on the root words, you listen to the buzz of your slurred speech until with spotty politeness, leave my house armed against the emptiness. If in joy you do not suffer much fatigue, leave this desolate art and go earn 6 coins before it ends in laughter. You die of intoxication and of fever in the air. They took you under their eyes and took it hard. Joining gazes, not a happy venture. Your anger is at the right level if they're not gossips. I'm in the water and I'm dying of thirst. Holding hands, let's hold tight. Against the dark, sad wind. And continue the serenade. When it suits you, you sit tight, all sequestered, statuette of a peasant saint. Yeah, I mean, it was perfect. I think that, yeah, no, I mean, and so I think that's perfect. Oh, that's okay. There's almost no punctuation in this book. There's maybe 1 comma. So it was very difficult to translate this book. I mean, there were many reasons why this was a difficult book to translate, but I think not having any punctuation was a big problem, and so I had to sit with the poems quite a bit and just listen to them and hear them, and I really had to listen for Insana's voice, which wasn't a voice I had really ever heard before or knew. So that sort of kept me through the COVID pandemic. I started these translations probably in March 2020. The first one, I just tried translating the first poem, and then it kept me company for the rest of the pandemic. Insana was born in 1936 and she died in 2016. So next year will be the anniversary of her 10-year death. As I mentioned, this is her first full collection, but she has a chapbook that came before this, a small collection of poems, and it makes use of the marionette theater in Sicily. And I started. There's a poem from that book called "I Am the Puppet Master," and I've been working on that. And a lot of those poems from that chapbook, you can see and you can hear. You hear the same sort of sounds in the book. In 1936? 1937. 1937. Stabs of loveliness. Run to the pawn shop and turn off the living model. Clutch him to your chest, naked and cold, and leave it as pledge to that tortured monotony. The one without clothes lacks bread. Nobody will give me back the time that eats me treacherously, sign breakers and paper lickers, and the ink doesn't reach the nib, the shortness of pen or depth of eel. And remember that the best blows are on the face, the best scratch marks on paper, not forgetting the punch to the stomach. Loads of smoke with minor grit, and you think to make blood and milk with suffering. You give me smoke, smoke I send back. I would like to have a 3-story house and leave drunk and insane from the foundry of swagger, making words with angels and lampposts that are no longer there. In front of your stinginess, without beginning or end, I force myself to snatch nails with my teeth, and I eat my liver without relish or pleasure. Naked, more naked than this, you die. I will stay or settle in your company with the bother of blows to make a bit of buzz. I prefer to conceal the art of stabbing. I refuse to remain on stilts, sugared up and washed up, waiting to be dried up. Where the bread is saltier, I castle myself and I don't unstick, and I leave the molasses to the ants. Confess that you press yourself to get me, and when you go back to cut the deck, the Queen of Hearts promptly falls out. Meanwhile, someone else polishes words, not knowing how to make shoes. I thought about making an aperture and dropping into black holes with every darkening. And anyway, find me an altar without a cross, a shepherd without a flock. You invite me for pasta and sardines, for Easter cake and salted ricotta, and then you open your mouth insatiate, expecting to teach at the expense of others. When it's time, drop my visor, drive stabs of loveliness. Waiting service. Bareheaded and tattered, you go on a pilgrimage to the sanctuary of jagged little tar pits after having thrown all the saints to the devil wails and the Madonna laughs, but please find a chair and sit down for prayer. You touch scratch and snatch the honor and demand respect for you and your purring. But look, you also touch my majestic nerve with your dripping, not even. Build your fame in your den and think for yourself. With my worm seed, there's no fever. And above all, I don't tether the master where he wants to put the donkey. The minute you touch me, I cover you with shit, ships, labyrinths, maritime charts, and so on. Go with that witch and be gone. Empty subjects for lost objects. Don't make raffles, charitable lotteries in my name. Save this wine that's legit. It will become good vinegar. You live for your family and house among gossip and messes, not even making enough for bread and drippings. But what does poetry have to do with all this trash? Never away at the tavern, you don't burn for hangovers or an upset stomach. There's a bridge between you and me that goes through life without double glazing. My name is Little Farty, and I provide a waiting service, never standing at attention for services of fuckery. And later, a horse grows larger when there are many flies. Corda bagnata in acqua lamfa, noose soaked in orange blossom water. 1. It's not a rambling speech, mine's mute, pelted by tip-offs and low-life thieves, while you go on singing of blueberries and myrtle. Rambling speech to rambling speech, this year's ranting is better than fucking, especially holding on to the end of a noose soaked in orange blossom water. If you say twill, twill it will be. The best word is the one said to avoid acting like a cow that has a big tongue and doesn't talk. And if you don't want to sing, you have every reason not to. Count the 7 years and the 3 lambs, the cabbage and the joyful mysteries. Someone else's dream was. A fly can't enter a closed mouth. Gnats aren't excited where there isn't wine. Rhymes and rhythms change, inflections and expirations, poems and structures, but the commander's ass is always the same and always tight, with some very rare exceptions. 6. But don't accept the power that shits in the mouth of reason. 7. My word of poetry as an ongoing immoral parliament between the great assembly and the merchants. Is it better to be stone or terracotta pitcher? 8. Do they let you be? Then let them talk. 9. As long as we're together in here, we're poetrying. Who knows if on Tuesday we're poetry? 10. I'm sorry and I'm pissed when I see that you want to mash masters and dumbasses with rhymes and bullshit. You call out the kind and do nothing. 11. When a dick grows nails, you may follow your enemies and count their footsteps. At this point, it's better to turn around, find the street, and move on. 12. There's no remedy for poetry. Those who have it scratch it like mange. 13. In our countryside, after the use and abuse of herbicides, there remained a lone sparrow that with an incantatory art mistakes lanterns for fireflies. The others have changed sides. 14. No illusions, you have no virtue to recover from lesions with a touch. Don't be like Charybdis's little seabird who in the breeches of a barber surgeon gives oranges and beans to a watery slug. 15. In times of famine, everyone throws themselves onto a hunk of cheese, and the ants also gnaw the rind of sour fruit. 16. Return and turn. My hands and feet are tied by vile ruination, and I'm dead and mortal. 17. God exists, and so does the fish soup. 18. Drop dead and be great. 18. 19. Tempered, well-tempered, smashed and dashed, there's not even vinegar for the salad. 20. The ways of God are endless. Thank you.
Round of applause for Catherine, please. Yes, thank you, Catherine. My apologies again for the the fire alarm. I think there's been a lot of good readings in this room, but that was probably the first that was so good that it set off the fire alarm. So you can always say that. But not truly, thank you. Next up, we are very pleased to welcome Krzysztof Siwczyk, along with his translator, Piotr Florczyk, himself a wonderful poet in his own right, to read from A Calligraphy of Days. They're going to come together, so I'll introduce them both jointly. To start with Piotr Florczyk's recent books include Swimming Pool, an object lessons title, the poetry collection from the Annals of Krakow, which is based on the testimonies of Holocaust survivors, as well as numerous volumes of translations, including numerous volumes of translations, including Invisible, the selected poems of Josef Gutorow, was named Autumn 2021 Translation Choice by Poetry Book Society in the UK, and a new edition of Building the Barricade by Anna Swierczynska. He teaches global literary studies at the University of Washington and lives in Los Angeles. And then we are also very pleased to welcome, as I said, all the way from Poland, Polish poet and essayist Krzysztof Siwczyk, who is the author of 17 collections of poems and 6 books of literary criticism, essays, and prose. He is a laureate of the Kościelski Foundation, the Gdynia Literary Award in the essay category, Silesius Poetry Award, and the Václav Burian Award. He also played the main role in 2 feature films, Wojaczek, directed by Lech Majewski, and Wyexpony, directed by Adam Sikora. He lives in Gliwice, Poland. This is also testing my ability to pronounce Polish, so I apologize for any mistakes. But please, everybody, welcome Krzysztof Siwczyk, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Quentin. Thank you. It's honor and reverence for us to start our poetry tour with Piotr and this book, Calligraphy of Days. We started here in Beyond Baroque. It's honor for me to be here. I only wrote about this place in Poland. It's very legendary, so I'm a little bit ashamed and nervous, so please forgive me for my English. Want to thanks for supporting our tour from Polish Cultural Institute in New York and Polish Book Institute from Krakow. And of course, very warmly greetings to Alice Catherine Theis. I hope Alice sees us now in YouTube, co-translator of this selected poems. And thanks for Sigil Books that decided to publish it into English. These are poems from very deep past and quite new ones. So maybe I'll start from very old fragments. I didn't believe that I use this in 3 sentences. You believe so that you may kill the doubt within you. I doubt so that I may kindle the faith within me. You and I are right because the end has no raison d'être. Without title. Until now, I imagined that everything has its limits. From now on, what passes human understanding fits within the limits of good or bad taste. Someone like this happened once. Once in a while, someone like this happens. Someday, someone like this will happen. Even a body as old as the world also does something in life. Ends its life. Thought hungry for the truth, they nurture hope. Still, most of the time, everyone dies the same way. Supine and sobbing. Piotr?
We're going to do a little bit of a switcheroo here. Only twice, don't be alarmed. Krzysztof's already thanked a lot of people, but again, the It takes a lot of people to help and organize a tour like this. And thanks again to Beyond Baroque for allowing us to launch the tour here. We're going on to Seattle, then Chicago, and a couple events in New York City next week. And it's an honor to read here again. Many thanks to Catherine, a tremendous poet, someone whose work I've been reading for a long time, admired. I don't know if this was mentioned or not, but Catherine has a new book that's coming out of her own poems. That's coming out this summer. So I hope, Quentin, that we can have Catherine back in these walls here very, very soon. And again, Catherine Carls, if you're watching us now, hello. Thank you for your trust, patience, and for working with me on this book. People you know must have died since you honor within yourself their updated nonsense. My guy friend travels the red trail across mountains and seas, and my girlfriend forcefully attacks the columns of Noah's Ark, you announce. One day you will sail away unatointed, and a host of organisms will quietly colonize you. Until recently, I watched the wise mechanisms that push you into the arms of others, into the grimaces of codependency, the ethics of weighty matters of a good and honest life. Evidently, life impresses extreme conditions which I have never known, a shot canceling all heresies. I don't know how I could help you. Maybe I'll talk about myself, a case without history. Simply put, nothing ever happened to me. Everything happened outside of me. I heard some calls somewhere in the distance. Someone mobilized my dreams. A vortex of intentions, pleas and curses. In the end, I gave up the journey. Since then, no paragraph applies to me. Things just go on without my participation. Only in moments of sheer doubt do I entertain hope and you. I just interviewed the great Angie Milenko, the poet critic who teaches at the University of Florida in Gainesville. She has two new books out. One is a collection of essays on poets, American poets, and their connection to the state of Florida, and of course a collection of verse. And so I thought it would be somewhat appropriate to read a poem called Florida, although I would love to know why you titled the poem, well, this poem, Florida, but here it is.
The hotel.
Oh, a hotel. Okay, great. So Florida. A familiar face from the Antipodes scans the lobby, greets people with a managerial smile. She has visited continents, anarchies, and orientations, trod the fitness trail of bitterness. It didn't have to be like this, wrong plan, supplies, and skills, but you can spot her old features, forever hot, predominantly possessed when boredom rustles like an anecdote. Lately, things aren't great. The heavy wallpaper bursts in the sun of narrowing horizons. Happiness peeks through the cracks. There's someone to open up to. They search for someone with a tongue. This, too, brought me here. This rather than that. Everything resembles itself and barely hangs on to this perpetual defensive state. A special effect on non-believers? And only one by one can we change the once and for all. But for the time being, all of us are meaningless to language.
Thank you, Piotr. I still recognize myself in Piotr's poems. These are very short poems without words. I wrote it after my father died 3 years ago, so it's a short lesson of dying. Crematoria one. 2 into 1.5 into a half. There's no other dimension. Spittoon, filled to the brim, bursting its banks, showing yesterday's fur, is consumed. Bathing, sponge and washcloth, again and again, precisely and calmly, amidst chaos. Patience. Again he calls out, yet it was explained, repeated many times. How much can one ask? After confessional poetry. Peace and bill. The body doesn't care. Discard all your clothes, return them before, so they won't hang afterwards by themselves as a pretext for who knows what questions or complaints. There should be nothing for anyone to rise afterwards. Meanwhile, curtains draw, to half darkness to see above the wind sill what's going on today at the crematoria. What will be missing beside the sun except for the ashes? Meanwhile, it only looks like a good day. Impersonal. Hygienic pats of hope. Travelers. Landing in the room. A television, a transistor, a trance. Philately. As in an old stamp album, cancer upon cancer. Results. Stored meanings, data in the folds of time, columns of dreams, the color of days, until the last one. Maybe first this poem called Changes into Polish. Przemiany. Dochodzą wieści z zewnątrz o pogorszeniu sytuacji wewnątrz raju. Gdyby raj istniał inaczej niż pod postacią paliatywnej fikcji, która porusza kogo może, a sprawdza się w doskonałości przemiany w prawdę niczyją, kojoną jak kto chce, wtedy nie może zaszkodzić, a sprawia ulgę zatrata. Zanim nastąpi wygnanie, spalić można dom. Changes. News comes from outside, about things worsening in paradise, if ever it was, other than disgust palliative fiction, touching those within reach, validated by perfection, becoming anyone's truth, smooth to anyone's taste, no longer harmful. Relief comes from loss. You can burn down the house before being thrown out. The numismatists. Heads, tails, some outcome. How will you spend your homeopathic treasure after blowing everything on opiates? Pretend less, you whole. On your way out, plant a white flag on the crematoria. The old poems. March report. Bloom and decay characterized all the process that I saw. I have nothing to add here. Everything correspondent in conservative harmony. Expect the funeral procession and musical hits of despair, since they died en route in a pit of secular soil, and so I saw them quietly differently. They looked motivated, ready to growl about their discoveries, to howl about hopeful nightmares and fearful action. I might have thought of something, but they didn't care about me. They didn't mention me in their truth decrees, if they might have racked their brains. Did they hold the key? By this, did they lose the chance to valorize their own mistakes, to learn a language in which they would perfectly grasp what is not here? Even if they are right, the sky today is ideally pure. For Docklands, please, Piotr.
You know, we're roughly the same age, so how is it that you keep your glasses on when you read and I have to take mine off?
It's horrible. We are 100 years together. So.
Docklands. Finally, a bridge materialized before their eyes. Drawn by the force of attraction, they crossed over to opulent lights. They had left a memory of details in a faraway home, full of minor understatements the size of matching agonies suffered by Sunday tourists, landlords of a rebellious imagination, or unsuspecting laymen finding truth in the case of their own intuition. Later, they changed their plans, but something went wrong. Returning to the docks plunged in darkness might be viewed by the uninitiated as a case of ordinary cold feet, case of midlife woos or some common pragmatism before the judgments of fate that we entrust to the discretion of a ridiculous accident, new editions of clever logorrhea or a vulgar overdose, the missed chance for life blooming in the blink of an eye on the most interesting channels. Meanwhile, they meant not to watch anything from a different perspective. No brochures, postcards, or ads. We don't care about London's monuments. Dear ones is not the only option to work beyond the current of deep emotions, the rot of inner suburbs, the stench of escapism. In an unknown context, in their spare time outside of business hours, they strolled across the sea and the river, silently in the name of the language of justifications.
Sorry, London, the city. The city hangs on wires while the dogs wake up. The charred folders of a colorful bliss fit effortlessly in the hands of a child who's come from suburbs. There are other eyes in those eyes, the multiplate eyes of a little admiral who leads a wooden fleet of bodies. The dry dock of the Royal Harbour is covered with duckweed that reflects the natural sky. The Temple of Dawn stands opposite the glass district, silent in the language of a monotonous melody nobody hums. No one comes forward in my name. Nothing may happen with my participation. Hence the city's army lies in wait at the corners. A scout crouches inside a shipping container and looks at my window. I've been in his sights since I turned on the light. The fumes over the city glow like a wheel under which rises another kind of sun. The admiral of the one-man city greets the aura with folded hands. The morning newspapers are as empty as the blaze. From a diary. Charity appeared at the beginning, actually. We had so many glitches and defects, and yet our permanent condition didn't burn or wrong anyone in this situation, which was simply a brazen interference in the intimacy of matters already lost that we happened to face. Respect and gravitas, a brief reverie and wonder, were mere formalities that we performed the day we abandoned the world of deliberate hope and joined no one. We remember the time when eyes went dark and libraries burned, when the seas parted as the leader spoke between book covers. As we live, it's worth mentioning that there are many uses for us, as per the literature on the subject. Sacrifice is a good deed. my daughter is not here, but I want to dedicate the last poem to our daughters, Piotr and Mai, Nina and Isa. A way of life. Wrapped in tissue, I found a curl and a baby tooth. Finally beginning, so carefully preserved, a little nothing to kill time between God and truth. Thank you for attention. Thank you. Thank you.
Round of applause. Krzysztof, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Please do buy some books. I'm sure Catherine and Krzysztof and Peter would be willing to sign them. Feel free to hang out for a while. And thank you so much. It's wonderful to spend the Friday night with you.